Okay, welcome everybody to another Fireside Chat. Today, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Chebet Mutai. Chebet is a Kenyan entrepreneur and the founder of Wazawazi, a luxury leather goods brand that blends traditional African craftsmanship with contemporary design. With a strong focus on quality, storytelling, and cultural expression, Wazawazi offers handcrafted bags and accessories that reflect a modern African aesthetic. Chebet has built an international retail presence, including a store in Denver, Colorado, through strategic mentorship, customer advocacy, and a commitment to empowering African artisans. So, Chebet, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to jump straight in. You didn't always start out in the creative sector. You actually had a foray in development work. Tell us a little bit about that and then explain to us what inspired your transition from development work to launching Wazawazi.
Okay. Thanks so much, Daphne, for having me on your show. And I'm very happy to have conversations with you, and hopefully we'll be able to inspire someone, teach someone something, and learn as well. Yeah. So I started my career in the development world. I was very lucky that was like literally my first job. I say I'm lucky for two reasons. One, it was a great opportunity, exposure, got to travel around the continent, and see that Africa is really just the same everywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in Rwanda, if you're in Nairobi, if you're in Johannesburg, it's more or less the same thing with the same issues. So I'm also lucky because I knew very early on, by 28, I knew that was not the path that I wanted to be on, like the career path. That was not for me, because I'm more of a hands-on person. I like to get things done quickly. I like to see results. I like to get things moving, and I also like seeing how my work directly impacts people. I like to see that direct correlation, and I couldn't see that. And I thought, well, because I've been around Africa now, and I've seen that, especially in West Africa, there's this like love for fashion that was so inspiring. I love clothes, and I meet this whole country of people that actually love dressing up. They're very expressive. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is what I want. I mean, why can't I just make these clothes? Because I'd come back with a lot of fabric. And when I couldn't get my clothes done the way I wanted to, I was like, okay, this is it. We're just going to make them. I'm going to teach people how to make these clothes, and then we're just going to make these clothes. So this is how Wazawazi started. And actually, Wazawazi started with clothing. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
And I still do make. I love clothes. Let me tell you, I love clothes. I love clothes. I do have like a perfectionist streak that comes across when I'm making things. So I couldn't perfect them, but we could accelerate with the bags. After 2 years, we could make scale. The bags business is scalable. You can make one design 50 times.
Right.
The clothes need you to be a bit more scientific, and I didn't know how to do that. I always was like, there should be someone who can make these patterns. I literally did not know there was somebody called a pattern maker. That's how much I didn't know anything about making clothes. When we got pattern makers, things improved. But at that, it was like a point of inflection with the bags, which are now like, I'd sell more bags than I was selling clothes. So I just kind of like shelved it, and I really want to make clothes again one of these days. But yeah, we'll talk about
that. Clothes are hard. Listen, I sold clothes, predominantly clothes, for 7 years. Clothes are very difficult. If only we could be the same shape. That's one issue, I remember importing clothes from different parts of Africa, and because even within the continent, we are, we're all different, but we tend to be certain shapes. And I remember ordering from a brand in Kenya and her saying to me, I've had to make the shoulders smaller and the hips wider. And then somebody from West Africa saying wider shoulders. So it's a very, very, very tricky minefield to navigate selling fashion.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yes.
interested when you talked about how you worked in the development space and yet you found that the impact wasn't coming through as fast as you wanted. So that tells me that you're going into this creative space, you already had a social impact angle already figured out as part one of the objectives of starting in the creative space. Am I right?
Yeah, it's always been like something that is deeply embedded in me. I've always had this weakness for people. I'd say it's a weakness for people wanting to help them. We even have a CSR program, by the way, that is
Mm,
just about helping vulnerable, at-risk boys primarily to put them back in school. So people, there's always like at the not back, but at the front of my mind,
mm,
it's always like, how are we going to improve people's lives? And as opposed to like just some broad numbers of 500
mm,
women were impacted. I'm like, who are these
mhm,
women? Did they tell you? What's going
mm.
on here? I was
So
just like, no, this
what
is
did that look like for you at the beginning, and what does that look like for you now?
at the beginning I couldn't quantify my intervention. Now I know exactly who I help. And
Mm,
that works for me. For me, my M&E mechanism is that I can measure, quantify, and you can validate. If you call these people, they'll say, yeah, Chebet has helped us because she's given me work, she's
mm,
given us work, and that's the way I am. I
mm,
just needed to impact people directly, and now as we look to scaling our impact,
mm,
I'm just trying to figure out how do we embed like AI tech to
mm,
accelerate that, because one of the challenges you have is that as a founder you have to figure out a lot of things. I personally love AI
mhm,
because it helps me accelerate a lot of thoughts, a lot of ideas, and maybe very soon it will be able to actually implement. I think it does actually, it's just that I don't know which one to use, but that it can help us solve. Because as African creators, I definitely think we have to do things differently. We don't need to wait 100 years to get to where Paris,
right,
the Europeans are. We
right,
have a huge advantage now. AI marketplaces like Meekono are democratizing access to markets.
right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree with you. I think that again, we put ourselves into a corner as creatives, and we say, if I steer away from what is traditionally known as creative work, I am losing myself. I am losing my authenticity. But
Yes.
we are missing an opportunity here to accelerate impact, so if your thinking is I must keep my creative juices pure and original and my creative activity, that's one thing. I was talking to Patricia Okello and she's talking about there's art for art's sake and creativity for creativity's sake. But if it is creativity for commerce, then we absolutely have to embrace AI. We have to come out of our comfort zone as creatives and explore how AI can help. And it doesn't have to be the hard edge to say design me a bag. It can be everything else that supports you so that your role of designing a bag, you are left to do that creative work and everything else around you is supported by AI. That's one really good way. But it's also great for like market research. It's great for understanding what buyers out there are looking for. But that's a topic, I guess, for maybe later or another day. So tell us. So you start your fashion business, and then you realize that through experimentation, you realize that bags are a much sort of lower, lower incidence of errors, better to make, and selling better. And then how did you progress from there? Talk to us about how you got from that point to making your first international sale.
So I have a friend in Slovenia that I used to work with. And she came to Kenya, and this chick lives on Pinterest. And she had a bunch of pictures, and she's like, oh, I wonder who's going to make for me this, and she's sitting right in my workshop, my SQ somewhere on Gong Road. If only someone could make this for me. You know what? I'm going to go to Sandstorm. I think they have something similar. Like, I was like, wait, whoa, calm down. Show me what you have. Because I was completely broke. I was out of money. This chick is ready to spend. And anyway, I made her the bag from Pinterest, and it was wonderful. And I was like, whoa, this was easy. In fact, she ordered 2 more because she was like, okay, I can take this back to Slovenia for my friends. So Anusha was the first person I made bags for. But before being employed, right after university, I used to import bags from Dubai and China and just like sell them around. And, it was always that PU fake stuff. They're beautiful, but it was always PU. In fact, I just found one that my mother had the other day. Like, I should, it's symbolic of where we began, the PU stuff, but I would always be like, why can't anyone make these leather bags in Kenya? Is it so difficult? So I was always grappling with that, like, oh, if only someone could just make these leather bags, why can't we make them? So fast forward to now me having an actual workshop. Okay, so I first get employed for 3 years, and now I'm a year into making bags, and then Anusha comes and we make her bag, and I'm like, wait, it's not that difficult. So I started to look for artisans, and Sandstorm was very catalytic in like influencing the industry, because they had like some workers, they had trained people, some who had left their company, right? Okay. So they had like tiny workshops. So they were not necessarily perfect at their work the way I thought it should be, but I started to make a few things with leather. And then started to think, oh, maybe I should get my own workshop. So for 6 months, I was just like giving out work. You find your leather has been messed up. It's, I've not finished. Oh, the issue. So there are all these like challenges of outsourcing to a small fundi on Gong Road, a small workshop. Yeah. So I thought, oh, let me hire my first bag makers. And that's when I hired my first bag makers. And the bags just took off, because my whole thing has always been Afrocentric identity. I am very proud to be African. And the other blessing of being employed in the development world was that I understood the relationship that the West and us have. We are treated as lesser, we are treated as incapable and needing saving from some, I don't know, authority. And most of the time I'd be sitting in those meetings, I'm like, this is such BS. No, that's not what we need. And once I asked, but that's not what is needed. Like, and someone answered me, but that's not what Washington wants. I swear to God. I said, oh, okay. So it's not really about development. It's about someone's interest being furthered, and I'm not going to be part of it. I have great friends that still work in those worlds. Yes. One of my best friends has managed to like rise very high, and I'm happy for him. But that's not me. That's not mine. I want to drive our agenda as Africans, and no one is coming to help Africans. It's only us. Until we hold the pen and write our own narrative, our own stories, everyone else is going to talk about it. And they've been doing it for years. They've been talking about us. So it turns out there are all these like women, Kenyan women, who were dying to get luggage that was Afrocentric, accessible, beautiful, functional. Because again, when I was employed, when I'd go like on a work trip, I'd have to carry these terrible laptop bags that are kind of like gray, some material. Like, I can't touch those things, by the way, at all right now. I'm allergic to plastic. And I'll be like, why can't somebody make like some feminine handbags? Why do I have to carry this like basically It's
Yeah.
bad enough I have to wear like these horrible, uncomfortable suits when inside I
Mhm.
just want to wear a tutu.
Yeah.
Why am I carrying these ugly bags? It turns out there were all these women who are feeling the same way. They wanted like
Yeah.
feminine work bags that were
Yeah.
highly functional and beautiful. And that is how Wazawazi was catalytic in the Kenyan Afrocentric bag industry. We gained a lot of traction, and 80% of our original clients from 2014 are still our clients now. Sometimes I see some of our original bags and they're still
Yeah.
completely functional.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how
Yeah.
we
That's beautiful.
evolved. Yeah,
That's an important point you're making because it's one I try and drum home to say retention is so much more important. Those people who buy from you once need to keep coming back to buy from you because you don't need to convince them anymore. They've got the product, they loved the product. You don't have to spend precious money, time, and effort trying to win them over.
yeah.
I'm interested to hear when you talk about Afrocentric design, when it comes to bags, it's easy enough to express an Afrocentric identity in clothing, but how do you express Afrocentric identity in a bag?
I think it's the exact same thing. It's the design elements of, you're like, oh, um, I could add beads, I could add cowrie shells, I could add fabrics that are easily identifiable as African. And then, of course, we have our leather that is from our cows. African design is actually very expressive.
Mm.
So going through like a design process where you're doing some queries on elements, it's kind of like if you wanted to make an art installation, the same process you would go through to come up with a concept. Okay, Afrocentric, what does that mean? What are the elements? What is my inspiration? Nature, the sun, there are things that even if you ask, let's say, a European person right now, there are certain elements that they just associate with Africa. One of them being the sun, for example. So how do you then design around the sun?
Right.
You could make motifs, you could make sunsets. I used to think Africa is the only place with sunsets until I saw some really spectacular sunsets in other places. I'm like, I feel a little scummy. This is not bad.
But hey, I'm not hating the fact that Africa is known for its sunsets, and
Yeah,
we're
yes,
owning
we're
that.
known for our sunsets.
We're
Yeah,
known for our sunsets,
yeah.
and we should take advantage of that. I think that on the issue of design, and this is something I haven't really touched on during these types of conversations I've been having. It's how do we as creatives find our own identity, our own African identity, which is it's when we say African identity, it's such an abstract thing. It's the things I saw when I was growing up. It's the things my mother talked about. It's all of those things in the motifs and the traditions that I experienced as a person. There tends to be, I think, sometimes clustering of things within this space. How do you advise somebody to do their research when it comes to creating? How would you encourage an upcoming or aspiring designer to create their own unique identity? For me, I stress that. I think that the market is full of things that look the same, you know and I know that people are creatives. I know that within a lot of aspiring creators is their own identity, but I just wonder to what extent they are exploring that and they're expressing it through the things that they create. So talk to me about your creative journey or anything that you can say to inspire somebody to find their thing, their particular identity.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it is one that I really struggled with for a very long time, because when I started making the clothes, I really wanted to make what I now know is modesty wear. That's my jam. That's what I like. I like flowy, kimono-ish clothing. But I thought people want like fitted dresses with all these things. I lost myself in that time that I was not trusting myself. So a very important thing about being a good designer is to trust yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Trust yourself as an entrepreneur. That gift you have of design, the ideas you have, God has entrusted them to you, because he believes that you are the most capable to bring them into fruition. But therein lies the challenge and the test, is to have enough conviction to trust yourself, to cross that bridge, that, you know what, there is no evidence of what I have in my mind. And therein, that is exactly the point. There is no evidence. Bingo. That's why you should do what you want to. There is your unique product. But we struggle with lack of confidence, second guessing ourselves, doubt, and that definitely skews us. You see your competitor, you want to like design around their product, so that's a
Yeah,
big problem.
yeah,
People design around other people. You
yeah,
just change the strap a little bit, and you
yeah.
say, no, it's not to design. I've had so many people copy my products, and I'm like, I know you think you're being creative because you've moved the strap, but no, that's copycat. That you're being a copycat. That you are a copycat. So I think copyright issues, design theft, and all that will continue being a problem. It's a human condition. It's not an African problem.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, the number of
yeah,
of designs that I see coming out of the Far East that have
yeah,
originated in, unfortunately, we
yeah,
tend to, if we experience something ourselves, we think, oh, it's an African, oh, we Africans are like this. The Far East is watching us all the time. And even
yeah,
in Europe, where I've had
yeah.
I've got I'm within creative and design communities. Big retailers are constantly watching upcoming designers and copying them and being sued. And some are successful or not. It is a human condition. It is a human
Mm.
thing. But I think our advice is for us, it's like we're talking to creatives who might not, as you say, be confident in their own creative ability, and therefore they look to the ones who have already been established, which shouldn't be like that. I mean, yeah, it's a challenge because I think most of our designers do not come through the traditional education of design. So you're already on a sort of like on your back foot in exploring it. But mindfulness about it is important. I'd also love to say how, like you talked about Pinterest. I love Pinterest. I have a visa there, permanent residency on Pinterest,
Yeah,
and it's great for inspiration. And
yeah.
I think people should use it as inspiration, not as a place to copy. So there's a difference, it's about honing your craft. It's about understanding that if you inject your own personality into the product, it will actually stand out. Okay, so before we touch on another really important point about the business of fashion, let's talk about your store in and your activities in the US. You've got a boutique in Denver, Colorado. People can check it out on your Instagram. It's lovely. How did this happen?
Yeah, well, thank you. So when COVID happened, I decided that we needed to accelerate how we access markets. And we'd been doing international markets, specifically the US. We had been going for shows like Magic, and the model of Magic for me was not working, sourcing, because we had not like built for wholesale yet
Mm,
at that
mm,
point. I mean, now we're getting better. There's a bigger workforce because again, a very important thing to remember is that for me, I had to train all the people that were working for me. So I spent a lot of time training people from scratch. So when you have this workforce and you're in a big sourcing market and you're trying to be in luxury, it's like three different conversations that, you're talking. It's all nice, but you're at the wrong place, wrong time,
Yeah.
wrong people.
Yep.
So I decided that direct to consumer would work better for us because we also have a lot of people, they write, they inquire, they want our products, but
Yeah.
they are far. So I was like, okay, we need to get closer. So I started like traveling to the US to, find partners, find locations, see, okay, what would it take? And I ended up in Denver, Colorado, because I have family there. And because I'm a networker, went out. This is one thing, go to networking meetings that are not for fashion only. Because I can tell you there is no fashion community really in Denver. They're more like, people in oil and gas, fintech. Denver is a
Right.
huge tech destination. So there are all these, other types of networking. And I found that the city had a program to encourage people to open stores downtown. Since COVID happened, there'd been a huge exodus from downtown Denver. So met these amazing people. I found a partner, and we then opened that store. So that
Okay.
store is currently being run by somebody else. And it's been 14 months. It's been lots of highs and lows. The highest high was validation that we are not crazy, that our products have a market, that we have an audience. There is demand for what we do. There is demand. The question is, navigating, how do we navigate changing customer behaviors? The US consumer is very turbulent. And I've gone back and forth enough to understand why. It's because of their weather. The weather patterns greatly affect an American consumer. When it's fall, I'm telling you, well, they said, oh, it's the first day of fall. I thought it was kind of like, we kind of like now know from today it will be fall, but no big deal. New clothes, new handbags came out, everything. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I'm like, oh yeah, these are my winter clothes. I had put them
Yeah.
away. Like,
Yep.
completely new things,
Yeah.
everything, like a complete shift. So when they change, for example, maybe our dangly
Right.
cold earrings will not work.
Right. It's
They change.
it's literally it's now that you're explaining it to me even.
Yeah.
It's something that I've taken for granted. Having lived in the UK for 25 years,
Mm.
that literally my slippers, all my light cotton stuff gets folded, put in a box. I don't see it for 6 months. And then out come the jumpers, the jeans, the wool, the boots, the closed shoes, even
I
as you
know.
say, the jewelry. Because guess what? This with a scarf and a coat, by the time I get to my destination, I've lost one earring. I mean, I
God.
don't know how many hooked earrings I've lost because I had a scarf around my head or whatever. So even the bags, the bags, you now started,
Yeah.
we're not carrying baskets anymore. We're carrying woolen bags and leather bags, So
And cross bodies, because you're wearing a jacket, you're cold, blah. So it's a completely different
absolutely,
product.
absolutely,
Even the homes change. Suddenly people are buying more rugs,
absolutely.
they're buying more this. I was like, yo, no one told me this, no one
Right,
prepares you for this. And I understand why then even like the US market and like the Western markets like change so much is the biggest catalyst is the weather.
right.
Because it changes the colors also.
Mm-hmm.
It
And let's talk,
changes the
absolutely.
textures.
And let's talk about from the point of view of selling into boutiques. Let's work that backwards because if the 1st of September is the change of season from summer to autumn, which is like a transition period before we get to Christmas, then the buyer who wants to have stock ready in their shop by the 1st of September, when are they placing an order? This is the kind of messaging, this is the kind of things we have to have, in mind as vendors to say, how far back should I be showing buyers the autumn ready stock? How far back should
I
I be
think,
showing them spring
yeah,
summer? Yeah,
minimum 6 months, they want it already like in progress.
yeah.
But I found the bigger, more serious ones, they do this a year in
Oh yeah.
advance.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They're already placing orders in China for
Exactly.
or Asia
Yeah.
for their collections. They've already they have a 100-year plan as a country. The retailers have even 5-year plans.
Right.
Okay, because they're also the trendsetters. The bigger they
Right.
are, the more influential they are.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese have a 5-year plan as a country. Their designers now with AI,
Mm-hmm.
they're like out of control. I don't even know which time they are anymore because it's crazy. It's
Mm.
crazy. In terms of market size, population size, we can compete with China in terms of like individuals, per capita,
Mm.
um, per square meter, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we need to work on our incomes, right? And we really need to get serious about consuming made in Africa. Because right now the
Yes.
Chinese don't care if you buy from them anymore. They don't care. They have made money internally. There is enough market in China and they have the population to consume internally. That's why they are like so bold right now fighting with Trump. They're like,
Yeah.
you need us more.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The buy African now in the current climate. I mean, within the development space, we know what has happened with USAID, and we know what's happening with other. It's not just USAID; it's other development agencies who are cutting back funding. We know what's happening with the tariffs. We are still stuck in this free trade, these free trade discussions. We're busy, scratching our heads, wondering what to do about intra-Africa trade. It now is the time, like we need to get our act together and be buying. And actually, what I would say about that is, our early revenue that we're getting as Meekono has been intra-Africa. It's actually been intra-Africa, and it could be more if logistics was better. We've had people walk away from trade because logistics is absolutely ridiculous. But you're absolutely right. I agree with you. We need to find our spot. We need to find our niche and trade
Yeah.
with each other. One of the big issues that we face when it comes to dealing with buyers is pricing. What's How do you approach pricing when it comes to let me put it this way. When you're selling to your consumers, like your buyers who keep coming back to you, and when you are selling to wholesale, or even when you're looking at your boutique in Colorado, what differences do you see between B2C and B2B?
I think pricing needs to be scientific from the get go, right off the gate. And with ChatGPT, for example, can even help us work our pricing. Say if we have what is our goal, what is our markup, where can we adjust, where can we tweak. But before we talk pricing, we need to know who are we selling to, because your pricing model for a B2C client and a B2B client is not the same thing at all. So I find that a lot of us sometimes try to give discounted B2C prices to
Mhm.
B2B clients.
Mhm.
as opposed to actually working out our true costs and then deciding what our markup is. So my point to pricing is we have to get really scientific, but more important than that is to know who you're selling to.
Mhm.
Who you're selling to determines what price point you are in.
Mhm.
Yeah. And for Africa, we are at least 50 years too late with doing African trade. We were independent. If it was the Western colonial powers that demarcated our countries and said, oh, now you're Kenya, you're Tanzania, the minute they left, why didn't we just continue trading within ourselves? Okay, we gave ourselves 10 years to recover from that shock, but we are 50 years too late from trading with each other. It's impossible to send money, it's impossible to send products, and that's the other reason why doing business with the West is easier. You just send,
Imagine.
and it's even if I have to pay tariffs, at least it is clear as day what I need to do, no complications. So that is a big challenge that definitely affects our pricing. I don't know what we're going to do about that. I was recently in South Africa for the Interministerial Summit and for Trade Summit, and all these ministers from all these African countries. And yeah, in theory, they're like, yes, we need to do trade with each other. We need to. I'm like, bro, you're late. While we were talking about it, why are we here? And I can't send money to South Africa without losing an organ.
So what's the
We're
solution?
not serious. We're not serious about this. But Africa is definitely the market to look into.
It is, and I think that I think advocacy. I think that we suffer from fragmentation and operating in silos as creatives because of the whole need, that imperative to protect our brand and our creative assets. We tend to work alone. Oh, somebody's going to steal my designs. That whole mentality, it bleeds into avoidance of working together, even for in areas where we should be working together, unifying to advocate on our own behalf. When I tell you that, especially within, I mean, your product, your Wazawazi bags fall into two categories. They fall into, I think, the fashion category as well as the craft category. And I think that the fashion category is better represented on the continent. But the craft category, nobody wants to know. Marginalized, rural-based women and youth, voiceless people. And when I say marginalized, I feel like sometimes it's deliberate by the brokers. The brokers don't want them to be a part of the mix. But if I if I look across the continent at the potential, I feel like our creative assets are some of our strongest assets because natural resources haven't helped us. Look at the countries where they have oil and natural minerals. There's a lot of devastation. Development happens, maybe if they're lucky, it happens hyper locally, but it doesn't necessarily spread. There are very few instances where that's been successful. But I think that in every country they have creative assets, creative and cultural assets that they should be exploiting. However, there's nobody speaking to ministers. You talked about attending an interministerial trade conference. That's rare. I don't know how many other creatives were at this conference saying,
There's actually, yeah,
so I
yeah,
think yes, so I think advocacy is important.
yeah.
I don't know. I think that in spite of these things, we just need to push to understand that local, regional, and intra-Africa trade is something we should not ignore as creatives.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you that without African women, Kenyan women, who have been our number one buyer, there would
Right.
be no Wazawazi. They're the ones who
Right.
buy and keep on buying. So that for me is indicative of what is happening, what the buying power of a growing African lower upper middle class population. Yes, of course, there's increasing gaps between the rich and the poor, but
Mm.
there's also a new group of young professionals that are very Afrocentric and want to have expressions of themselves. So that's like the marketplace we play in, middle class, give or take, communities. But then there's also this under 35 group. You know, in the next 10 years, Africa will have 60% of the world's youngest population. 60% of the world's youth. 60% will be in Africa. They are in Africa. Okay. So, you know, this is like somebody who's just starting work, you know, they don't have a lot of money. They're ambitious. They are very expressive with their style. You know, they love, you know, dressing up. They're very Afrocentric. At least the ones I know are very proud to be Africans. They're not confused.
Right.
They're not bleaching themselves. They're not dying to have like Western hair, and you know, like they don't have the trauma that we had.
Right.
This is a different group of youth that are happy that they're African. They're actually very proud and vocal. So, for example, if you go to a concert today for Sauti Sol, for example, you'll see that most of the young people there will have something Afrocentric on their person. So if that is going to be 60% of if that's that population, 60% of the world's youth are here, what are we doing to capture that market? You know, I'm very happy that, you know, you are seeing now like very young designers are getting into the market, making beautiful things like, you know, handmade jewelry, kimonos, you know, simple things that are actually finding markets locally. So I am excited about the future. Now, for me, I'm really banking on platforms like Meekono to democratize these marketplaces. Logistics will continue being a nightmare, but I think DHL, for example, is really trying to work with makers now. You know, they're really trying to be very competitive because they've realized, wait, these people are selling more than the coffee people. So let's pay attention to them. They might be sending small packages, but they are consistent. So I think growth partners like logistic companies, money now is getting more and more available locally for makers. For example, if you have an LPO, you know, places like PBP, powered by people, will support you. And then I'm learning about, for example, Dada Soko, that is also empowering women. So in general, it's
Talk about
good time.
I'm not aware of that.
Dada Soko?
Yes.
Or what? Money?
Yeah. The Dagasoko.
Dada Soko is online marketplace. It's kind of a little bit like Meekono, but they are focusing in local markets. And they basically want you to collateralize your orders. So if they see, oh, Chebet, you've sold 50 handbags this month, okay, you need a loan, we can give you a loan because we can see that you're having some traction on our platform. But I believe that, so we just signed up with them, and I believe they're also like having alternative financing. So Dada Soko, and there are many people like that. MasterCard has put a lot of money behind different organizations to support what Pat Okello is doing with Kayana. That's another example. So there's so many, you know, catalysts that are homegrown, that are, you know, doing a lot of things. So I do think that we are leapfrogging, and, you know, there's that snowball effect of, you know, when I was just getting in, and then more and more people came in, and now they're all these like African driven catalysts like Meekono, which I believe changed everything, because cultural nuances is one thing that we grossly underestimate. Cultural nuances can make or break a brand. I learned that in the US. And if we have marketplaces that are made by Africans for Africans, we are suddenly in a different space, because you might understand what floods in Ukambani mean.
Exactly.
A
Exactly.
buyer in New York does not understand. What do you mean there are floods? So
So what? So
there's a
what?
drought. So
Yeah,
there's cholera.
that
So what does that
everything,
mean?
it means
Everything.
everything. It means
It means
everything.
everything. So I think that with platforms like yours, there's a certain patience that is
Mm,
nurturing,
mm,
that is really important. Yeah, of course, the buyer wants what they want, but perhaps maybe for us, big box buyers are not who we should be
mm-hmm,
looking at
mm-hmm,
as we,
mm-hmm,
until we get off our training wheels, because right now we are
mm-hmm.
there. So we just want somebody to order 10 earrings. Let's just start there, please. Don't push me. Let's start with 10.
Keep preaching, keep preaching, keep preaching. I so agree with you. I think that our ideal, if you do a profile of an ideal buyer for the vast majority of vendors on our platform, it's an independent boutique who wants, they would rather, they're risk averse, they want variety, they're flexible, unlike the big box retailers you talked about who are buying 6 months, not even 6 months, they're placing orders a year in advance of the start of the season. Let's not get too excited about those. Let's talk to the
Yeah.
boutiques who are willing to top up mid-season. They want flexibility, they want variety. They'll order 10 from you this month, 10 the next month, etc. Let's grow into our shoes by targeting those particular buyers and
Yes.
understanding their
I think
needs.
that's my takeaway from
Yeah,
this conversation.
yeah,
Focus on those. Yeah.
absolutely. Do you have any final words for our aspiring creatives, either in
Well,
the, yeah.
yeah. Well, I have a question for you. Now that you've been on the platform for a bit, what advice are you giving us as
Mhm.
makers? What do we need to pay attention to for us to start seeing some traction
Yeah.
on your platform?
Okay. That's an excellent question. I actually was having a conversation with somebody about that the other day to say the beauty of being a vendor on Meekono right now is that, yes, we have over 200 individual vendors registered. That's a manageable number for us to be having many conversations. We know each and every one of the vendors on the platform. We have, in 2025, we've initiated our buyer acquisition. And so we now have over 100 buyers registered on our platform. They're browsing, they're buying, placing smaller experimental orders. And we're also talking to larger, not big box, but we're talking to larger enterprises as well. The messaging we're getting from buyers and the vendors who are successful are the ones who have certain things right. They're ticking certain boxes. The ability to communicate the product and the brand virtually is spot on. So the product images are there, specification is there, all the technical information is there, as well as let's call it the soft information, the brand story, where you come from, who you work with, what your ethos is, whether it's sustainability, whether it's, cultural identity, whatever the story behind the brand is. So there's a very strong communication of what the product and the vendor are. The second thing is and all of that communicates more than words do, because if you have a high quality image, then you're portraying to the buyer that you are a high quality maker. And if they place an order with you, they're going to get a quality product. The second thing is the pricing. And it's the understanding that the buyer will add a markup, and the markup needs to make sense so that the buyer can then sell and resell and come back and buy from you. Another thing is, I think buyers are looking for, especially like the larger ones, they're looking for customization. So they're looking to understand that if you make a particular bag, can you do it in colors that are in trend, or is there an ability for them to come and say, we want a shorter strap, or for this embellishment, can you do it in these colors? So we have a lot of buyers who've come and said, I don't want anybody else to be selling what I'm selling. It's not that they're looking for you to reinvent a product. They literally just want one or two tweaks that make the product unique to them. So that's what's happened. We've had a lot of we are seeing a lot of requests for customization. So that is the message. We are targeting to start attending trade shows. And again, we think that there's value in the African trade shows. We think that there's value in establishing home markets, because if we cannot crack our own home market, how are we going to be able to service a USA market with all of its circularity and things that are going on that are completely outside our control? So that's where we're looking.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's really the message that I would give to all vendors on our platform.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks for putting me on the spot. It's an opportunity
Yeah.
for me to share what it is we're doing. It's exciting times, I
Yeah.
think. Mm.
Yeah. Wow.
All
Right.
right. So, Chebet, thank you so much for taking the time to be open and generous with your experiences and your advice. I hope we'll have you back again. It's always lovely to talk to you. And yeah, wishing you all the best.
Thank you so much for having me.